6:16. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We've still got 2 minutes, so maybe we'll move the warrants first.
Sure. Payroll, number 14-08, $122,877.31.
And I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, I abstain on payroll.
Okay.
And deduct warrant number 14-06A, $25,983.63.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Bill warrant number 14-07, $182,057.36.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
you.
We don't have any minutes for tonight. Nancy was not feeling well, so she's not gonna be at the meeting tonight, so Greg is gonna try and keep up with us on the notes.
I learned shorthand by writing gibberish.
Very nice.
I'll speak slowly.
Okay, so
You have no idea how much that means to me, really.
Good thing you can watch that back, right?
first up, we had Michael Wood. He's interested in a 1-year appointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And Michael is here.
I'm here.
So, do you have any background with that type of a group?
Not particularly in zoning. I have a master's degree in public administration, a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I don't know if that qualifies me for anything really.
It must.
Well, somebody tells me.
I think that works.
I live in Groveland most of my life, except for a few years living in North Carolina, going to school in Arizona, so I'm familiar with the town, so that probably helps.
Excellent.
Good.
Anyone have any questions?
No. I make a motion that we appoint Michael Wood to the 1-year appointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
I'll second it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Painless.
Before we lose you, you'll need to
He met Ian.
be met in,
Yeah.
so
So I have to go back over
you'll have to go and be
Vetting.
sworn in.
Yeah.
If it's this easy, can I run for senator too? I mean.
Senator is.
You just did.
We've never had a senator for that.
I just need some money, right? And that's about it.
Well,
A
we
lots
can
of money.
probably give you a senator's position, but there'll be no pay
That's fine.
and limited work.
Even better.
You could just create one tonight, don't you think?
It's all about the title, right?
Thank you, Mike, for doing that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Will somebody send me a schedule of?
Once you get appointed,
Mhm.
And you are.
Nancy will notify the zoning board, I believe, and their chairman, to make sure that Nancy has your contact information.
Okay.
And then she can get it to them, and then
Okay.
you'll be all good.
Also, if you go look at the website, at the homepage, go to the lower left-hand side, you see calendar, click that on, and you'll see when the meeting is.
Okay.
All meetings are posted.
Are they usually on a Monday night or are they?
Wednesday nights.
Every other, second and fourth Wednesdays, I
Yeah,
think. is the-
yeah, second, that
Is
sounds right.
Wednesday tough?
It's.
If you're in the alternate position.
Are you gonna be sworn in tonight?
Yes, 'cause Ian's here.
Good. And you, okay.
He just met
That's
Ian.
fine.
I end up traveling a lot for work, so it's really
That's
just random if I'm gonna be available.
That happens with a lot of people.
That's why we like to have a full board.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
A full board is 5 members, full members and 3 alternates, and I think you now complete that.
Okay.
I think that's the third.
Congratulations.
Wonderful, thank you.
It's been a productive day.
Nice
Good.
to
Thank you
meet
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good night.
Okay, next up we have J.R. McComsky. He's interested in the Cable TV Advisory Committee.
Yes, I was doing technology and communications with the Air Force for 9 years. I've been a Groveland resident for my entire life. I'm in the cable industry. I know what they're trying to do. I'm in the telco industry and the wireless community, so I'm very familiar with their technologies and the cover the tap.
Excellent. And I believe there is an open position. I asked Tracy. Tracy's
Familiar
also-
with public address systems and all that stuff as well.
Oh, excellent. Anyone have any questions? Yeah?
No.
I
This
didn't
is
realize
great.
that he looks like his mom now that I'm looking at him.
Oh, my name, yeah.
And,
I'm the other one.
the other one?
I'm the oldest of the.
Did you go to Maritime?
No, that's my sister.
Your sister,
The youngest
okay.
one went there.
Okay.
My brother Michael is the middle one that probably is everybody's most familiar with. I left at 18.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great that you're applying.
Yes.
Sure Tracy will be happy and the other people that, you
Actually,
serve with.
I too travel for work as well, so we're ready. I heard they don't meet that often, but we all meet.
We're meeting right now more often than normal, cause we're speccing out all new equipment.
Yeah, just so you know, I went to the meeting, I'm on the same committee as well, and, the committee is underway with a big strategic plan, if you will. And new
Updating
equipment.
all our equipment.
Updating all our equipment.
Going high def.
So-
I know the standard, I know the
So this is
MPEG
an
standard,
exciting
MPEG
time
dash.
to be on this board, because you're basically gonna be part of a decision-making to, really upgrade us and take care of, a lot of things that'll be in place for about 10 years or more, so.
I know the vendors probably which you'll be using,
Good.
and contacts in them, and I know the standards that you're talking about.
Great.
Great time.
Wonderful.
Great time to join us. Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you,
anyone
Chair.
like to make a motion?
You have to go see
Mrs.
Mrs.
Brody?
No, you
Brody.
haven't made a.
We need a motion.
You have to vote him on first.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just giving him.
I'd like to.
You're kind
Getting him
of frisky
prepared.
there. He
I'm
just
doing
sits down
Nancy's
here.
job, vote him in first.
Maybe we should
Excuse
put him
me.
back in the chair.
Is he appointed?
Yes, put him under contract.
I'll take the notes, you can leave.
I know Mrs. Brody.
Betty, would you like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we appoint, John J.R. McComsky to the Cable TV Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Great,
Thank you again.
thanks.
Appreciate it. I know that would have drifted up a little bit, I didn't know it was a
Oh.
meeting, I thought it was just going to say hi.
You're fine.
Yeah.
Polo shirts are fine, right?
I just.
Yeah, I'm good. I know I have a copy.
I have it on. That's even better. Do you have more than one card?
We got a couple.
Yeah. That way, give me, if you have two more, yeah, that's good, that way I can give a cable chairperson the,
Thank you very much.
There's a lot of cool stuff that they're doing these days.
Yeah. So, yes, we
Go
wanna
see
see
Brody.
Ann and get sworn in, and, if she has any questions, she can know us.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you, good night.
Good night. That's nice.
Geez, we're gonna have to create more boards now, everybody's
know.
gonna have to serve.
I don't know if that's.
This is all Donnie's fault, because he kept telling people, you can't leave here without serving.
signing up for something.
Very good now.
I did get a letter, with somebody requesting a position on the Groveland Advisory Committee, but, so I'll have to leave it for Nancy so that we can discuss it probably at the next meeting for an appointment, just to make sure that, we have an opening.
There is an opening,
I am
isn't there,
familiar,
Joe?
yes, there is an opening.
Okay.
So why
Well,
would we
well,
move
I
ahead,
mean,
we're the appointed
well,
authority.
can I go check him first?
Well, Joe and I are on that committee.
Yeah, we're on the.
No, I don't mean that, I mean because you can't be appointed if you owe any money to the town.
No, this person doesn't
I like to
know
check
anything.
everybody
Oh,
beforehand.
I understand, yeah.
Oh, well, I just paid my water bill.
Again, I don't have to check that one.
All right, so.
I know the list, that she's not on it.
Yep,
Good. So, I mean, Kathy Prunier,
yes.
Wonderful.
I think
she's-
Kathy would be great on that committee, 'cause she's a worker. Don't you think so? So you want to make a motion?
That's a fun committee.
It is, it's a good
Get-
committee,
get
it's
stuff
working.
done.
He was just appointed, you can,
Oh.
if you wanna talk.
So you need an appointment?
He just walked to,
Yeah.
Yeah, if you,
clerk's
it's,
office.
I mean, do we?
It is Kathleen Pruner.
Right.
at the
Kathy
discretion of the
Prunier.
chair, he can appoint,
Why don't
or
I-
make a recommendation,
Yeah.
sure.
So if you wanna continue.
No, are you-
ready?
Good.
He's all right. Okay, I'll make it.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Kathleen Prunier to serve on the Government Advisory Committee.
We gotta watch it.
Gentlemen,
Okay, Betty made the motion.
Yes, I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
And Kathy will have to be appointed, by Ann,
Yeah.
sworn in by Ann Brody,
Right.
I'm sure she
Our
knows
next
that.
meeting is September 5th, so
So Greg, do you wanna?
somebody could let her know.
Yeah.
I'll give that to her. If you could let her know, Greg? Is there an email?
There's a phone number there too.
I'll forward it on to Dan.
Yeah, okay, good, thank you.
I was emailing with him back and forth today about the finance committee, because the chair can't make it, and I'm not sure how many of them will actually come without him, but we'll see. Thank you.
Which meeting is that?
The GAC committee.
Dan can't make the next
No,
meeting?
the chair of the finance committee can't make it, he really
Oh.
wanted to go,
Oh,
but Dan
okay.
didn't wanna postpone it, and I said, well, I'm not sure how many will go without him, so.
Now, what did they have for makeup on that committee though? I mean, was there any specific, groups that were supposed to be on it? that's.
You
No,
mean
you
kind
guys-
of like,
You know, so, kinda like how they have other things like we have with the CPA, the
no, I
someone from
don't
Bragg.
think so, I think it's just an interest in government and growth.
Yeah, just volunteers.
So it's progressive.
It's just a temporary committee that's doing its thing and then it disappears. Remember the old road study committee, when it's done, it was done, it just disappeared, one of those.
Well, to be specific, the Government Advisory Council right now is working on the second charge. The second charge is to, right now, is we're interviewing employees of the town and members of boards and commissions, just to kind of pick their brain about what works with government in town and what's not working. It's been a very good conversation. We've got some really good ideas that are coming out. And what's interesting is we're gonna be rolling out recommendations. We're not gonna do this process for many months and then create this big report and make a recommendation. We're gonna be rolling out recommendations probably starting in September, after our next meeting.
There's a lot of enthusiasm.
A lot of energy, and it's really fun to see.
Okay, let's see, next, in a couple of minutes, we have, rec committee and Dan. I'm just looking through the, FYIs. We did get a letter from, the acting fire chief with regard to the Bagnell School, that the occupancy is okay. They have a conditional sign off on the, permits and the alarm system, everything was working, so. It looks like that, that's good.
So everything's fine for the start of school in a couple of days, right?
That's what he
Is
said,
that-
yeah.
And that was corroborated by the correspondence from John
John
Osborne as
Osborne,
well.
right.
Confirmed it, and it was, that's good.
And also, I did speak to, Mike, and he had also mentioned that, Georgetown, I don't know if you've noticed, the fire trucks have been running to Georgetown quite a bit the last week or so, 2 weeks. Georgetown had a pump out of commission, so they were using Groveland on the mutual aid like as a backup. But now I guess it's moving to another town for 2 weeks and then another town for 2 weeks.
Our truck is moving to.
No, their needs, so I guess, Rowley's gonna send a truck for a couple
Oh,
weeks.
so everybody's pitching in,
Newbury
it's
is gonna-
truly mutual aid for
and
everybody.
Boxford.
Okay.
So we're just letting them use the truck, we're not sending.
No,
personnel.
people are going with it, that's the problem. There were probably like 8 or 9 calls.
Don't they have 2 fire departments in Georgetown?
From what I understand, Erie only has 2 acting members on the Erie, so they don't even respond,
Oh.
I did,
which was a surprise to me.
I'm sorry, Don, that's all right. I did speak to Mike as well, and I asked him to put some of this information in writing, so we have it documented. Apparently, there were 7 calls, and, what he's gonna do, as Donnie said, they're gonna now cycle for at least 2 weeks with another town. So if there's a problem in Georgetown, they need mutual aid, they'll call another town for 2 weeks, and then another town after that for 2 weeks. So we're not gonna get called upon for mutual aid for at least a month, and the problem is long-term, because measured in, I asked them, is it measured in weeks or months? Potentially months before they get their solution to their problem of getting the right equipment in place. So that had a bearing on our budget, on our fire department
That was my
budget.
next
And so
question.
Mike was concerned that, we were exceeding a certain limit. And there's no, reimbursement, as you know, with mutual aid. It's a sort of a gentleman's agreement, it's guided by Massachusetts law as well, where towns help each other if they need extra equipment and extra personnel. But as Donnie said, it wasn't just the equipment, our guys are going there too, and that's ringing up the bill. So Mike said, if there's any way that we can spread this out a little bit so that we're not getting hit, more than we can handle based on our budget, otherwise we could exceed, our budget, parameters, so I asked them to put that in writing for Donnie, for the board of select, so that that's documented.
Yeah, that was my question, if we're helping another community out. Mutual aid is usually, I guess this is considered an emergency basis or climate out there, right? But it could become costly,
Good.
Absolutely.
at any given time for any community. And so is that what the community responding is the one that pays
Their people.
the people responding? We're paying our people
Right.
to go into another community.
Right.
That doesn't leave us short here in Groveland, does it?
Well, it depends on the time of day. I mean, it potentially could leave you short, because if it's during the day, they could end up drawing most of the
like Mike to come in and talk to us about that.
Okay.
Did you find that, maybe we should talk about that?
Yeah, that would be,
No, it's a
that's
good
why I
thing.
asked him to do it in writing, but if he comes in, that's fine too, it just,
Some other questions might come up.
Donnie's decision, but I think it would be good.
So,
Yeah, I mean, that's
is,
fine.
did they just start the 2-week cycle?
Yeah, well, no, Tracy probably can answer that. What was it, about 2 weeks ago it started with the
Yeah,
mutual
when one of
aid?
their trucks has some major repair work to be
Right.
done.
So it was 2 weeks ago.
So now they have another community
They have
giving
another
them
one gonna do it
aid.
for 2 weeks.
2 weeks
And then
and
another
somebody
one's
else-
gonna do it for 2 weeks.
So we're gonna be off the hook for about a month,
Right.
if you will.
So you want?
And
you
John
can put
Clements,
on the
the
next
other, so
agenda,
he
you
would be
put-
having
Yeah,
some
if he can come in
information.
and explain the situation to us.
Okay.
All right, so next
Dan's
up
here.
we have,
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Betty, how are you?
Good.
we have Dan and Pam and Mr. Moulton
Mr.
and
Moulton and Bob.
Bob. We had some concerns with, different things down at the park, as you know, cause Greg has spoken with you and whatnot. One of the things recently was the sprinkler system, where someone had pried the lock out of the box, and then, I'm sorry, your first name?
Gary.
Gary, okay. Gary drives by in the morning, when he didn't see the sprinkler system out front on, he'd go down and check on it, communicate with Bob, let him know that, there was an issue again. But the sequencing of that sprinkler system from down there to up here has to be run at a certain time because there's another controller in this building. I don't know if that was ever explained.
It was after Greg and I talked about it last week, and
Okay. And, I also spoke with Derek Binding a week or so ago, and he also mentioned that there was an issue where the lights were blowing the main breaker.
yeah, we had to cancel the game because it kept going out in the middle of the pitch.
Now, any idea where that resulted from? They seem to think it was the pump coming on.
I don't know, did you talk to the electrician?
Yeah, it was. It was, well, because
The
when
board was hot.
things had jogged,
Yeah.
the timing went off. So while the sprinkler had gone off for a couple of, when the top power went out, so it had shifted things off that 2 hours. So normally where the sprinkler system pumps wouldn't have come on until 10 o'clock, they were a little late coming on at the same time the lights would be on at the same time. That never happens. Pumps don't come on until after the lights are off. So it's never been an issue before.
All right, so we just wanted to make some things clear that, if, and I think you know it now, but, if there is an issue down there with the sprinkler system, I know you had told me before there was a flooding problem.
Yeah, the shortstop one leaks around the base, and Greg, somebody must have corrected it since, because it doesn't happen anymore. It was 17 inches of rain with that adding to it, I mean, Mr. Bynum had to spend $150 on speedy dry every other game,
Right.
to try to dry that spot out, because it was extremely muddy.
Yeah. Now, last week, we had a piece of pipe here that showed
Craig did.
the one that got torn out
Yeah, that was
behind
in
the
the
mound.
very beginning of the season.
Wasn't that the one that behind the mound
Yeah.
that you thought was broken before?
It had a crack on the top of the head, because
Okay.
it sits up a little bit, maybe because it's on the mound, but now he put it down, so, and a block next to it.
I guess what I'm here for is ultimately, what do you want down there for the infield? Do you want it to get watered, or do you
No,
not?
with dry weather like this,
Yeah, but unfortunately,
we can't predict the weather, I know.
yeah, I mean, I just can't go down there every day, so.
With the construction site, the downpours, what had happened was all the water was coming underneath the home dugout, and it formed these huge puddles, and the sprinkler would go on and enhance those puddles. So, I mean, we had 17.5 inches of rain in May, June, July.
Yeah, and the sprinklers were running.
And the field's like settled into these big holes, so the water just sits, cause it's a clay base, and it doesn't go through the clay.
In a perfect world, you guys would have a live source of water where you can wet down the infield before you start.
Well, that was one of the coach's suggestion, is to get a water spigot, to rinse off the tractor and the dragger, and to spray down the infield before games, so the girls aren't
And
breathing.
you wouldn't even want the sprinkler head out there at that point, right?
I looked at it yesterday, and it did somewhat of a good job.
But it's almost like a daily basis monitoring, right?
Well, when it was broken, the shortstop was broken, that whole area would just fill up. And-
See, the way it was designed is there's two valves out in the outfield.
Yep.
On the first and second base side.
Yeah.
And one of them controls, there's 3 heads along the grass line of the
Yep.
infield.
I've seen those.
And then
There's
the
one in
4th
Shore.
one is right behind the mound.
Yeah, and
So
there's one.
you can control those heads from coming on and off, but unfortunately, the grass grows over these valve boxes, and they're impossible to find.
Yeah.
And when you do find them, the valves, if they're not exercised, it takes 2 men and a boy to turn
Oh,
them,
'cause it's-
you know?
it freezes up.
They're rusted, and it's kind of a crazy design down there. And I guess my question to you, would you be better off without the head running, or with it running?
Without it.
Yeah.
Only if we had a
That's
water
what I
source
think.
with a, you know, a utility hose that we keep next to the shed, and, after we drag the field and put the lines down, we can spray it like they do with.
See, someday we wanna supply you with a live source of water, because the problem we have down there right now is the only time you have water is when a zone is on.
That's right, that's what Greg has told me, he says when they finish the construction, there'll be an opportunity to
Yeah,
put water
and then
lines
when
in.
you tamper with it, you don't know it, but you're shutting off some,
Yeah, the
Just
person
hit
or the
some-
persons that were tampering with it, they're told not to touch it again, cause I don't know anything about a sprinkler system, I have one in my house, I don't even play
Yeah,
with it, I turn it
because
on when it needs the
last-
water and I shut it off when it's done.
I
It's
think it
not
was
on a
last.
It's a different
last year
situation
the
here,
soccer
totally.
field
Yeah, you got
sprinkled
50,000 zones going from the.
And we need to take advantage of every moment. 10 o'clock at night is, we have to start.
Yeah, and we're done at 9:30, 9:45, so we never have a light.
So I didn't know that the pump overlapped with the lights, and that's what did it.
That's what did it.
Well,
we
no,
can
what happened was
fix-
there was a power outage.
Well, the box heated up, the electrical box inside the shed
No,
was like
right,
hot.
but I'm saying the power outage threw the timing off for the sprinkler
Yes.
system.
Right,
And
that's
for the
a-
first time, we don't never have power outages around here.
No,
And
it's
this one we
because you're
had
watering.
moved it a little bit for the, when they turned the lights on, the pump was calling for water.
And it
And
turns
the,
on.
and the
I can't
controller
figure
was
it out.
off for
That's
the
because the
timer?
pump came on
You mean
and
it because
it
we lost power?
overloaded
Because we lost power, the
circuit.
timer was off.
That was
So
the
we
hours.
didn't have the correct time of day.
Right. And
Because the-
then,
the
then we
power.
went down and reset it, but that's what was causing it, cause Stevie went and checked it, he thought the
See, I
wire,
didn't know that.
that's what caused the overheating. That's why it hasn't happened before, because we don't lose power very often this time.
But when you go walking in there and you see the lock to the timer pried off with a screwdriver, I'm saying, I mean, this is a little bit crazy now, you know?
No, was it drilled out or was it
It was,
screwdriver?
looks like somebody just went in there with a screwdriver and just pried the whole thing off. I'm looking at it, so I went down there the following day, funny, brand new one was put back on within one day.
Well, the coach was told to fix it, he fixed it.
But, I mean, obviously, we have a bunch of people down there that are touching it, right?
Just two, and they're not allowed to touch it anymore, they don't even have keys to the shed. So,
See, that's what we've decided, you're changing the lock, and it's gonna be very limited on the key
Well, no,
access.
we were going to, and then they were having a fall
we have a
softball league.
U14 girls league,
Right, but if you change the lock and he has a key to it,
that's even better,
Yeah.
that's even better,
That's fine.
Then
Yeah, I
if you
didn't know
need
where we were doing
anything,
the thing.
just call me.
Yeah, I'd like to get your
You
card.
know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah,
that's how
yeah.
we don't wanna fight about this, we wanna make it right.
No,
you know?
I don't want any of this
No,
all the
that's-
time. I've spent 7 to 8 hours a week just trying to get that field ready for games, we lost a ton of games for all the rain, and it's just, it's.
Me and Bobby went down there one morning and we saw an absolute disaster because that valve stuck on and it ran for the entire time that system ran, and you had like 4 inches of standing water.
Yes.
And you remember,
Yeah.
Yeah, that was.
and I'm saying, if I were you guys, I wouldn't be too happy right now.
Well, I mean, we do our best, I mean, thank God we have an ATV that can pull through the mud and throw the speedy dry on it, drives right
I
up.
think
but-
we ought to eliminate that hit in the infield.
The way I looked at it is I thought dust was more of a problem with no water source than,
Well, with this summer, no, because it rained every other day.
but the way it is now.
Now it's, yeah, the girls will have a tough time this fall if it's not wet, so.
If you drag that dirt right now, you're gonna have a ton of dust, right?
Correct, it's best to do it in the morning.
It's
most
not
of
too
the-
bad down there.
No, it's not
Because
terrible.
it ran, didn't it?
Well, I mean, we do it, like I did it Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, the girls had practice at 11, and it was fine. And.
What did you find it at that time? With the head running?
No, in the morning, it wasn't running in the morning.
No, I know, but it ran at,
Yeah, it must not be leaking anymore, cause it does not.
Oh, dude, it's not leaking. I guess what I'm getting at, he wants me to shut it off. I'm not too sure if that's the right idea.
Not until the end of this fall, I mean, October 15th, we're done, you can shut the whole place down.
Did
It's-
you
we're-
put the head down deep enough, they don't
They
catch it?
did, they did, and he put.
Well, I think what pulled it up is your little
It's the dragger.
excavating machine.
That was in the spring,
Yeah.
and I told Greg that, and I actually hung the thing in the shed, said it's in the
I know, I
shed.
saw it. We found that buried in the ground.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We found it buried in the ground.
That's why we didn't know why there was
It
so
must
much
have
water.
disconnected when the dragger
I
hit it.
think the dragger
And then-
hit it.
And then again, I picked it up out of the
And
ground.
I think it was left in the dugout, and I think we might have picked it up and put it in the
I
shed.
put it in the shed, yeah.
So that's where it is.
I mean, it's.
So
None of this
I'm
was-
right, you do want the sprinkler to run,
Yeah.
but you just don't want it to run when it's wet out.
I mean, I think what we were trying to do is set it for 5 minutes because of the flooding.
Problem is that runs four other heads that
Yeah.
need, we're nothing but pure
As
sand
long
down
as it's
there.
not stuck and leaking, I don't see a problem, cause I didn't see anything wrong
Alright,
with this
so
weekend.
since it's been fixed,
Yeah.
you're in pretty good shape.
And I know where the heads are, actually,
Just-
shortstop, it leaves an indentation, pitch my leaves, so I know where it is, so we.
Just for curiosity's sake, why did someone wanna get in that time with a screwdriver?
They wanted to probably set the sprinkler to a lower time so it doesn't flood shortstop.
Oh, is that what it was?
That's, cause these guys gotta prep the field, and,
No, I know,
and that's a, you know, spending $6 a bag times 10 bags for every game, that's $60 a game that, you know. these
Oh, I
guys-
know, I knew there was more to the story than what met the eye.
Yeah, and I, you know,
That's why we wanted to get everyone together, so.
yeah, and everybody's been told, cause Greg and I had the conversation after Derek spoke with you.
Right.
You're not allowed in there, only I'm allowed there as director of Groveland Youth Softball. When I'm there, you can go in and grab equipment, but you don't touch anything in there. And I think next spring we'll have our own shed, I hope, right, Greg, is that was the plan?
Well, it'll certainly be under construction, how far along we get at that point, I don't know. You may be in the unique position of having nothing available to you, not the other one being turned over to the equipment shed and the other one still being under construction.
Yeah, whatever we can do.
You'll have to do what everybody,
I mean,
all the other leagues do.
maybe the Groveland Rec Committee could build our own shed for the
A lot of the
softball.
sports have done that.
Well, that's what I think, I mean, we don't wanna drain the town's money and, you know, as long as it's not too costly of a thing.
But we've got a master plan, so it's gotta be brought before the committee.
Right.
Well,
Make sure
no,
it
the
fits.
plan will be built, after that equipment sheds will just be set, I imagine, like we did everywhere else, you know, we can
Well,
probably.
let's try and make sure it's part of the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
That's
they'll
what
need
I'm saying.
electricity, because they have to charge the battery in both the ATV and the dragger that moves up and down, so.
Okay. Next question. You okay with what you know now?
Yeah, I'm fine, I think we should just have a communication mode.
Absolutely, I didn't even know who you were or who the person was.
No, I knew,
so-
I knew that,
So,
I
I
didn't know who you were.
I basically emailed Greg and tell him, and he calls you.
It's better if we just
Yeah.
deal with the problems as they arise.
Hopefully there's no more.
Well, at the same time, don't take Greg out of the loop, cause someone has to pay for it.
No, I mean, I have to go to him, I know that. But at least I can target the problem before it gets
Well, I
to
can
the
just call you and say, tell Greg this
Hey,
is
listen,
going on.
we got something going on down there, you
Yeah.
mind checking it? I'll say, Greg, hey, listen, can we do it? And he's gonna say no or yes or whatever, and we'll deal with it.
And in the spring, what we need to do is get a leveling, draining agent to fill all the gaps. So this construction that drained all the water in every rainstorm, you know, the water drains off, and that's something we had discussed before, the rec committee's discussed, so we'll do that in the spring. No need to do it now, I mean.
You mean like a swale to keep the water from coming in?
Well, no, the field over time has sunk the clay in
Oh.
spots, I can't level it, I mean, I spent hours in raking, it's just, it's
I
impossible.
thought you were good at this.
I'm getting better, Fenway
Okay.
Park, I have my resume.
Yeah, I'm right here looking for you.
But, I mean, I think once we do that, any excess water is gonna drain properly off.
We know you put a lot of effort into that field, people tell us that
Oh,
you're
good.
working there all the time, so.
Oh, it's-
I think
We just wanted
eventually
this water thing in.
they're gonna need like snap valves down there with live water when we get the new system.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, when the now utility shed becomes into a snack shack, that'll have potable water brought to it,
Yeah.
obviously, under the sanitary code. So
You
you'll
just
have to
don't
stick it on the
control
outside
the
there,
amount of
so
water
all you
that's
need is a
going on in
garden
the field
hose.
right now, and that's a problem,
Yeah,
and I don't know what, and
With
I-
Lorraine, it was a huge
and
problem.
until we get to the next phase here,
Yeah.
I really have no solution other than
Yeah.
maybe meeting you down there and showing you how to shut that head off, you
I
know?
think you nailed it, we need to communicate, instead of someone going there trying to do what they think they know how to do,
Yeah.
I call you and say, this is.
So when I went down there and I saw every breaker shut off in the whole box, including the main, everything was deader than dead, I'm saying,
Well, I went down there 3 times that night to try to trip the lights back on, cause Steve told us to shut it off, let it sit for 15 minutes, turn it back on.
Yeah.
So, when I went down there the last time, I just left it off.
oh,
And when I left, I said to the coaches, I said, when it cools down, turn it back on, but don't turn the lights on, game canceled. So, it hasn't been the easiest
I just think if we can just,
communicate.
yeah, that's all.
I agree.
Alright, the other thing, I know we talked about the ATV,
Yes,
as far as, ownership of that.
yes.
Is it insured?
I called Foremost Insurance again today, and because it's not owned personally, they won't insure it for me. So, what I need to do is find somebody that'll insure it under the Groveland Recreation, as a non-profit. And it's gonna take me a little bit longer.
Cause at one time you had said something, where you probably have to turn ownership to the town.
That might be
Is that our simplest solution?
it might be the easiest way to go.
Well, cause the rec committee is the town, correct? It's
Correct.
not like Little League, they don't have their
if the rec committee owns it or softball owns it, I'm not sure. who
No,
owns
the
it.
rec committee owns it.
The rec committee owns it.
Okay, and then the other issue we had was the town actually owned the lawnmower that got sold.
You wanna answer that
That
one?
was a big oops. We honestly thought Greg Meehan had bought it. And
With rec
he
committee.
thought he had bought it.
Actually, I think,
So we never looked back.
well, as I remember the way that purchase came through, Greg was talking to Greg at one time and said they needed a mower that was 25 horsepower in order to pull the machine, the infield. So we were all at a gathering and Greg Meehan came over to me and he was talking to me about it. So he said that there was money in the rec department budget, right, the town's budget.
Right back when the rec
Right.
had a budget, yeah.
So we got a price from Rosencrantz and the mower was delivered the next day. So I believe that was town money that was bought with, correct?
Yes, and we did not know that till you saw it missing.
Right.
In fact, it had sat over at Rosencrantz for at
Whole-
least 8 months.
The whole winter, yeah, to get, cause they bought it back. The transmission was gone in it from pulling that dragger through the mud, so.
So what did they pay for it?
15.
1,500, so that money should get returned to the town.
We can do that.
I agree with that.
We can do that.
All right. You know, I don't know, there are times that it would be nice to have a mower down there. I've bothered Bob on weekends before asking if there was any way I could get a mower,
Yeah,
you know, before a game, but, you know,
yeah, those fields grow quick.
I'll tell you, you guys are doing an awesome job. The infield was like a carpet.
Well, we've got the big one now.
It's
We're using the Toro one now.
really nice. And the softball field, you know, you guys do a great job. Problem is, people forget who owns all these things. It's the town that owns them, and the organizations think that they own what they're doing, and what they end up owning is all the hard work in order to make it look good, and we appreciate it. But
Sure.
at the same time, we have to communicate and be involved in any of the big decisions.
I totally agree with that. And that's really always been the case. I don't think the rec committee knew that. the town
No,
bought that.
no, I
don't think
know.
they-
No, but if you want, when they do reimburse the town for it,
Yeah.
we can hold the money in a reserve for appropriation account into like the Pines or something like that, and then when the buildings are built, you can go buy a smaller lawnmower or something like that, a small ride-on with it, to kick in. That way there can be down there for people to use on weekends or something like that, you can do it that way.
I think as long as we have space to put it in, I think it's a plus to have one,
Mhm.
you know, 'cause, I mean, it was pretty good before.
Hmm.
I know you guys used it for dragging, but a lot of times I mowed the infield before a game.
Oh, you did,
Yeah.
okay.
You guys don't have an infield except for clay.
Yeah, we don't need to mow that.
But anyway, all right, did anyone else have any other questions for,
No,
for Rick? I
it's
think
good that we met.
we
Yeah.
appreciate you coming in, Gary, that was awesome, that,
Well,
but again, just make sure Greg is in the loop. That's what we, you know, when I spoke to Derek, and I think he communicated that back to you.
Correct.
I wanted the limited key access to that building, so,
It'll just go, I'll change the lock tomorrow,
okay,
this will be the key to that lock, you can have it through your season, and then you can return it to me.
Okay.
There you go.
You want me to take it down?
Might as well, 'cause I'm gonna put the lock on tomorrow.
Okay.
all right, so.
I'll just contact Greg and we'll get the information.
Well, Gary, will you end up getting a key for that building too, 'cause you have.
Well, we've only got the two, these are the, I mean, this is a temporary lock just to get us through October, if Gary needs a lock, I mean,
He
this-
can see you,
Yeah, he can see me at any time.
all right, and Bob, you don't need to get in there,
No,
okay.
I get the other key. He's
Okay.
always
I
looking
don't-
for a key.
I don't get a key.
Well,
Gary.
If you want the other key, I'll give it to you.
No,
Maybe we
if
could
you
put
give
a high
Gary a
spot
key,
down
he'll.
there.
Give it
No,
to
no,
Gary.
no, let's not go
We
with the
can
high.
talk, we can talk about that, 'cause I have a spot.
I'm gonna
Okay.
go too.
I'm gonna give you my car with my cell phone, which I
Oh,
always
yeah,
have.
yeah.
Let me write my cell phone, I'll do it outside, well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great job, thank you.
Okay, sorry we went a few minutes over.
Okay.
Nice.
I did receive a letter from you, I believe, did you guys get a letter as well?
We all did.
It's also in our packet.
Yeah.
Um,
Got it at home.
so I don't know if anyone else is coming, or,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Indy and Amy were supposed to, Ed unfortunately doesn't get off the train till 7, he comes out of Boston.
okay,
So they said he would try and make it, I'll let him know if it's done before then. And I thought, Joe and Betty had both called me and they got
Okay.
the letter from Nancy, so I thank you both actually for calling and acknowledging. they weren't included. Well, I heard that we were supposed to be there.
As far as, you're not involved when Claire was first asking about a fence around the
No.
building?
Never been notified after Dawn of anything.
Okay.
Dorsey, all the people at Sinus were not aware that this was going on, is that right, or did not go to
Well,
any
Linda's here,
neighborhood
she can
meetings?
answer first, so.
No.
No,
Andy and Amy, like I said, said they were coming down. Chris is on vacation, so
Okay.
he's not here, and Ed gets off the train at 7, but, I mean, they signed the letter.
Yeah.
They're the ones who kind of collaborated. They actually thought that we were doing the fence when they heard about it. That just came up last
I know,
week.
I'm sorry, I'm really bad. I just need to get names
This is
because
Greg's
I'm
first
trying
night as-
to help Nancy out here, so I'm
Oh, I
sorry.
noticed you were trying to
I
get
know some of the
somebody.
names, but I'm sorry, I mean, you were just speaking, can I have the spelling of your name?
Sure, Dorsey Piscatelli, Piscatelli.
Do you want a copy of the letter, Craig?
it's good, it'll be easier, cause
Well,
the names
that's
are
Kelly.
There you go. I can do little quotation marks.
Think about it.
I got it. I got these right, okay. Okay, thanks.
I had brought the letter with me tonight because I didn't know that they both got a copy. So I was waiting to come to the meeting to present it, so.
Yeah, both Joe and Betty have called me already.
Absolutely.
All right.
So I think we're just here to discuss what's
All right, well,
happening, so
basically,
everybody's on
I'll
the
go
same
back a
page.
ways. Way back, we had a meeting,
Sidewalk.
Bill Dark was with us, everyone was there, when we were talking about the parking issues with the soccer field. That never seemed to have ever gone away, as far as that goes. And then going forward, then Claire came in with a proposal to block off an area around the rental property that they have out front. And I know Jimmy and Sandy were here, because whether or not they read the postings or how they knew that the meeting was going on, they were here.
But everybody in the neighborhood, Piscatelli's and us, both attended the first meeting
The first one. for
with the selectmen, and then the second meeting, and then the third one kinda got screwed up, so.
Okay.
Not to say they weren't notified about it, and we went down and told them personally
Okay.
that that was gonna happen. There's no question about that we did that, and they were there.
That was in the
I
fall.
think the issue is, they wanted to be able to weigh in on what was going to happen. Am I right?
Well, from that point on, we didn't know what was going on.
Right, okay, so
Because there was
you
no
felt like,
meetings
because it
involving-
was a work in progress. How do we do this, where do we,
Exactly.
you know, trying to please a lot of
Right.
people. And here we are, and I agree, and I'm sure the Sheehan's agree, they don't like looking at those cones
Oh,
out
no,
there.
you know what, there's
It's a
one thing about
nice-
the letter I agree with, they're ugly, there's no doubt about it.
It doesn't look
Absolutely.
nice out there at all.
No.
Oh, he has
And
a
if-
copy of the letter.
Which letter? Which letter do you have a copy of?
Do you have a copy of the letter they sent?
And where'd you get that?
I got it.
Oh,
Can I make a suggestion? At this point, it's water under the bridge, whether the notification after the third meeting continued to a point that was satisfactory to everybody that signed the letter. So why don't we have a discussion as to what has been proposed very, very, very recently?
Yeah, and.
Because maybe there might be, my concern is that people may not have a full understanding as to specifically what has been proposed.
Sure. I mean, when I approached the board, I think it was 2 weeks ago,
Okay.
2.5 weeks ago, at the last meeting, proposed the fence. We got together, we decided on a price that the fence was gonna be. We discussed how we could make that property better, but that, you know, for parking and the rest of that, to accommodate that soccer field is a major undertaking. So, and at that point, prior to that, we were talking with Claire, trying to get the whole thing done and have some direction of parking and some division of property. At that point, it escalated in cost. I came back to you and said, look, the fence will work for me. It was $2,200, 220 feet, from the end of my driveway back down to the property line to the telephone pole. And that's what you guys voted on, that's what we decided to do. That's where we are.
did I miss that meeting? Was that the one I was at?
That's right, you were not here.
We did too.
Hmm?
I didn't even heard about it. I mean, what type of fence are we talking about?
I believe, Claire had come in originally talking about a post and rail fence.
It got changed to a split rail, which is
rail.
pretty similar.
So it's
cheaper,
wooden,
isn't it?
split rail, okay.
For both, for the one around the building and one.
That's
Oh.
actually the one I'm talking about.
You're
And I
talking
think-
about
I think the
rounding.
long one was the same,
Yes.
yeah, it was all split rail.
And I think what the neighbors are saying is that they're not going to be comfortable looking at a fence like that.
I mean, it just looks awkward. I mean, I think that the simple solution would have been to start out first with a simple double yellow line going all the way down, and then letters saying no parking. And then post a sign on each telephone pole, no parking, owners will be told at their own expense. I mean,
And didn't we have a discussion about delineated parking and put signs, didn't we have that discussion?
I remember at one time there was discussion
you here,
about
Joe, when we
having
talked
it
about it?
striped or something, but, I believe the
No, it
striping
wasn't.
guide, wasn't there an issue?
That was early on, Don, and,
That wasn't
the
part of it.
striping came to about 500,
I
if
can't
I remember correctly, didn't it?
Yes.
it's a cheaper solution, huh?
No, that included a fence around the historical building,
Yeah.
and then the striping. The town was gonna put up, some signage, and then some bituminous hot top to go across the
curb
where
coming off.
could get out. That escalated to 33, and then it escalated again from there, and I wasn't a part of that. It ended up at $5,000, I believe. So, you know, I put a plan together, I gave it and suggested it, and that didn't fly. But truly, the difference between myself and everybody else has means of egress out of the property. I need the right of way for egress, so when people park on it, whether it be the neighbors, whether it be anybody else, it's a problem, because people follow suit. So, I mean, I agree 100%, cones are brought over, you know,
And we-
but at that point, the cones were there was a water break on the other side, the water break the other side, up the street, it was orange cones everywhere, it's crazy. But on 2 occasions, we have not been able to access get out of our property. I take that back, once. We could actually drive my daughter's Honda Civic out, but we couldn't get my truck out. So, and that does happen. The farther you go in on the property, the worse the parking becomes. And the worse, there's nowhere for people to go. We discussed this before. There's no
Yeah, I know, we were looking for
direction.
solutions.
There's no direction to put them in there, so it gets ugly.
I mean, the orange cones could be cut off on Saturday by the soccer committee, for the people who go down there on Saturday morning, to go up, put the cones up, you know, soccer's all over on Saturday, they can pick the cones up and put them away. I don't think that's a hard task for them.
How long is soccer season?
Just,
Just starting again, I think.
Yeah,
How
they're
many-
gonna
how
run
many
till
weeks?
Second week in November.
Does it go
So it's-
November?
Yeah, it runs right through mid-November.
Okay, so
Pretty
Now, is
sure.
it still Saturday and Sunday mornings?
yes.
Both?
It hasn't
Yes.
been.
They said it wasn't gonna be that much Sunday, but it has been. So they
It,
kinda.
it seemed like the other problem that we had come across was even when they weren't running on Sunday mornings, someone else was in there. It seemed like there were other people just coming in.
Yeah, Steve has kind of squelched that. Normally he gets a call from somebody. He said a couple of times, like, who's down there on a Sunday, and nobody's supposed to be, so throw it down. Seems like it's more just out-of-towners coming in and see the fields, and, or sometimes they just get a bunch of guys down there playing football even occasionally.
Well,
on
there's an
Sunday.
over 50 men's league that will rent the field on Sundays. They've done that traditionally for many years. Then they have
Yeah, I
a
think
little
they
party.
got stopped because they were tearing up the field.
Yeah, and there's a little
Dishwasher.
party, they have a tradition, have a little party, a cookout afterwards and drinking and so forth. So I believe that that's been terminated, that arrangement.
I'm pretty sure.
So whatever activity is on Sunday is not an organized activity like we would have on Saturday, to my knowledge.
Well, I think first of all, we agree with Jim, that they have to have 24/7 access out of their house, better. I mean, we're 100% with them on that, we just wanted to be included, and, you know, unfortunately, Andy and Amy aren't here, because, and Ted, they're the ones who actually came up with the alternative solutions when they had heard about it, and came and talked to us. They actually thought we put up the cones to begin with, and we said, no, we didn't, so that's kind of why we wrote the letter, is, look, can we take the cones down, can we talk about it, and make sure that they have egress out of their house, because that is.
Well, that's mainly what all the discussion, I think, has been all the way through.
It's never been any more or any less.
Right.
But to write a letter and say that even during the busiest days, there is a right of way of being blocked, that is so inaccurate. I vow you to come to my house on the busiest soccer day they have there, and look out my front door and tell me how chaotic it is. It's just a matter of fact, just come and watch, just look.
Oh, I
It's-
believe it's chaotic. I
it's-
see the cars they parked in.
It's crazy.
It looks like,
How long's the soccer
you know,
field been there?
the Dodgems or something out there.
Since the
They're
Shannon
going
School
every
came down
direction.
there.
No, actually,
Almost.
that's not quite true.
No?
No, it started off as one field, which was
Yeah.
okay, and then it went to 2 fields.
Okay.
So now you have, again, it's the same
Double.
story I've been telling you. You have, so many kids on a team, and they come down, and you don't have a facility to park cars down there, put them out there. It's just not there.
Is that going to change with the new fields? I mean, that was another question that somebody brought up last week in the shop.
Which new fields are you talking about?
The ones on Center Street? It's
Yeah,
a
answer that
question that got
question.
brought up, so I'm just.
In about
Yeah.
10 years.
Well, I think maybe, people thought that everything would be located on Center Street, but that's
We haven't
a
even,
long way off.
we haven't even begun the process of borrowing the money to purchase that yet. And there's ties to the other properties behind it for access through that for a period of time for them to remove fill. And of course, there's the funding issue to actually build them, should they, if that's what the town decides they actually want to put there. There's been no public hearings or anything on this. We've heard everything from movie theaters to water parks, I mean, everybody has an idea of what it would be.
Mhm.
Again, way premature, I think, to even be thinking about what that will or will not become at this point.
Okay.
Just one quick point, I mean, everybody kept, when we talked about putting the fence up earlier, I was supposed to try to determine where the property line was, but love of God, I can't. I can't figure out where it is. I mean, Jimmy was gonna bring me something, the only thing I can
It
figure
is.
out is the property line with the right of way is somewhere on their lawn.
Correct.
Well,
So I'm like,
the deal is, I found the rear pin to the property, the pin's marked on it, and plus, you have to add 15 feet for our section of the right of way. There's another 15 feet beyond that, there's the town's right of way to be used in purpose.
that's the part I can't
And-
find you were gonna bring me.
I do, I have it.
Thank you.
As
I
a
can't
street,
find that.
so it's actually 30 feet wide. If you develop the other side of it, then everybody loses 15 feet all the way straight down, it seems totally
So it'd be like,
ridiculous.
so basically you're saying the fence line with the right of way would be 35 feet off the edge of their house, is that?
I would say if
They
you
had
had.
5 feet and then there was a 15 foot right of way,
If you,
and
if
then you're
you-
saying there's another 15, so it'd be like 35 feet off the edge
if
of
you,
their house.
if you look right down the line, the grass line,
Yeah.
just look at the grass line where the hot top is, that is
Yeah,
the 15 feet
right.
of the right of way, including my property, which I own 2 pieces of,
Okay.
which is 300 and some odd feet
I
long.
just can't find anywhere in
Yeah.
town hall the 15. I know you said you've got something.
No, I do.
That'd
I
be
have.
on, that's.
So from that point of the grass, 15 feet over is the town's 15 feet to be used as a street
So,
or right of way.
would that be delineated by the telephone poles? Are they-
Yeah,
are the
a little bit
poles-
farther than that, the telephone poles had to be, when you set them, had to be crowded back over to make sure that they were actually on the property. So when you look at it and you go measure it, which we did the other day, it's really the grass line right straight down. That's pretty much where it runs, and it runs from there all the way back to where the cold wall is.
Now, what about on the hot top side?
It's 15 feet from that grass line.
Okay, so the telephone pole, so it's not like 14 more feet.
It's 15, 16 more feet.
So basically, where the hot top runs up,
Yep,
it's a 15-foot strip,
correct,
which is right about where the cones are.
pretty much,
So that's where the fence was gonna go.
correct.
Yeah, I said, that's the part I couldn't figure, cause you guys had put it like on the edge of the property thing, and I could never find anything other than the other 15 feet, anywhere in town hall.
Yeah,
But I mean, Jimmy said,
It's-
I mentioned it to Jimmy, he said, I've got that paperwork, I went, great.
yeah, it says it in the
So-
deed, so it's a 30-foot right.
So it's 30.
It is. It's a westerly 1/2 of the right of way.
So that would be your point, where you'd have your demarcation, whether it be double yellow lines, or cones, or a fence, but at least when Jimmy shows me that, then I'd know where I can put whatever it is you wanna put.
I can tell you the sign doesn't work, because you put a sign on the telephone pole and that does, it's arbitrary.
Well, they were parking like right under the telephone, or on the
And they
lawn.
just give you the same line, I'm sorry, we didn't see that. So I mean, if there's a better way, I'm all open for ideas, but at this point, you know, we're coming upon the season, it's crazy, and I'm certainly not gonna put cones out there every weekend.
No,
You shouldn't.
no, it shouldn't, it shouldn't.
You know,
It should be the soccer community that does it, or the soccer people, I should say.
it needs a permanent solution, it really
And
does.
then the other thing we discussed at the 2 meetings we did have at the soccer field was when we do put a fence up, how chaotic it is over there, that it would get damaged, and then the expense of having to keep fixing it.
Well,
I
I mean, that would be anticipated that that could happen, but at
Right.
the same time, you'd hope people would, you know.
Hope, you know.
And-
You know what it's
That's
like.
why
when
I
you're in
don't
the
pay
center.
attention,
There
I
are
don't pay attention to the
cities.
signs, I can't imagine a yellow line's gonna help at all.
Well, I mean, if you
Just-
put a
I just
yellow,
don't.
a straight double yellow line all the way down, and then in big letters, it says no parking.
To me, if I had to look out my front door and look at something, I'd rather look at a fence than a double set of yellow lines with a sign on it that says no parking down the right of way. Just my personal preference.
Yeah, I think it's,
To me,
It's
to me,
just
it makes no
something that
sense.
needs
I mean,
to
for
be-
26 years, I've been plowing the right of way. All the people on the other side of the street can't get out of their driveways, park over in the town property. Everybody else, I plow them all out in the morning, 2, 3, 4, whatever time it is, so they can get back. I've been maintaining it for that long a period of time. It's not an issue. The issue is I just need some, definition of where they can park and where they can't. It's just that simple. It's not a big deal.
And I mean, some of the other thoughts that were brought up were putting pipes down there, but again, that's gonna look ridiculous.
They actually thought about, Betty made a point that she thought the fence was, so I looked into a different type of fence and putting, a steel post in with concrete, it just escalates $7,000 worth, Much better looking, but, there's a cost associated with that as well, so.
But if we put post and rail in the snow flies and somebody's trying to, I think that's gonna be a nightmare trying to plow around a post
I've
and
been
rail
plowing it
fence.
for 26 years, Betty, I don't see this as a problem.
But there hasn't been a fence there.
Right.
You've had clear sailing.
It's a post and rail, it'll go through it and around it. I don't know what else to say, unless you,
I know,
if you wanna plant trees all the way down it, I'd be more than happy to see you do
well,
that.
that was my suggestion, that we plant something that looks,
Here's the
That-
problem, but here's the problem again, and it goes back to the town, you need parking to accommodate all those people, who come to a soccer game, you gotta put trees there, the hot top's gonna come by, it's already busted up, from my standpoint, when you look out my front door, that's a disaster, the whole thing's a disaster, not just the cones, but everything else, so unless you're willing to rip up the rest of the hot top, or do something that's more defining, that's more attractive, it's gonna cost you more money.
well, they seem to do other things pleasant in the
I
community,
mean,
don't think
I
we
mean,
should-
the record
why
that he
should
did
the
it all, I mean,
neighbors-
why aren't they responsible for some of it?
Why,
I just throw it out there.
if you, the same thing with Linda, she's got the same view you have, she's looking out.
Get it closer.
Yeah, a little closer, yeah.
Yeah, the fence solution, that we have now is, we.
On it?
It is,
Really?
Yeah.
it is a temporary solution, what will change the need for this plan is one of two things. Either we make an investment on that property, especially the circle, and create a bona fide parking lot, or part of the solution could also be that the soccer operation is transferred somewhere else, and we won't have this type of activity. But all of that is measured in years. And so, now it becomes, I'm hearing also between the parties here, if you will, I think we all care about the neighborhood and we all care about our property and public safety. And we also don't wanna create an eyesore, and there's a difference in taste as to whether or not, what is more of an eyesore, whether it's a wooden fence or double yellow lines with signs. I'm not gonna weigh in, on that, but, I guess my question is for the abutters, if you will. Would this be more acceptable to you if you had been included in the decision-making process? If you can answer honestly to me, just for yourselves, not to try to represent anyone else. And I ask that question very respectfully, because sometimes, to try to find a solution, a decision has been made, a motion has passed, but, we can withhold implementing if people are gonna be very, very upset, I suppose. But my question is, can you accept this plan? Is it now acceptable, even though some of it has been done without your knowledge,
I think we haven't.
or without your
really
participation?
We haven't really seen the plan, I'd like to see something on paper. I question, and we go back to the fall, when we were talking about the 3 fields, and we all went out for the site visit, and they talked about the fences. And then I heard the whole thing got dropped because the town didn't have the money, they weren't gonna go to the 3rd field. So that's the last we had heard.
Okay, no, it never really got dropped, and
We'll
actually
find that
Claire
out,
was
yeah.
coming in tonight I guess she wanted to talk to us again about what she really wants to do now.
Well, I think that would be interesting, but we'd like to see something on paper, and I think it would have been nice if the other neighbors, the three across the street, and I'm not gonna speak for any of the three of them, they have more of a view personally than we do. Okay, I know, what the Sheens have gone through for the past 20 years since we've been there on Saturdays, how many times Bob has walked over and asked people to move off our lawn, to open up that right of way, so they do have access and to get off our lawn. They pull right up on our lawn. Actually, people come and ask us if they need swimming pool, if ours is a public pool. So we know how chaotic it is and crazy, and I fully understand what they're going through. Joe, I think it would have been nice if we were involved in the beginning and actually saw something. I think you would have gotten the whole neighborhood involved,
That was
a
our
little bit more.
attempt.
Well, but I think you're
And-
mistaken. I think there's only one abutter. And I understand there's people across the street, that's true. But there's only one other abutter. We included them in the first meeting. Don't mistake this for anything else. We included them in the first meeting, the second meeting. So it's not like we're trying to do anything. It's not my responsibility to bring everybody to every single meeting, and you make them aware, you do that. But there's only two abutters, myself and the Piscatellis. So, you know, there was nothing else going on than being straight up front. We walked down and told them, they made 2 meetings. They didn't come to a third one. I told them at that meeting, on 2 occasions, that I wanted a fence. There was no question that I said. I am very straightforward. I have no reservations about what I say. And that's a fact.
Jimmy, I think I just said we did discuss that last fall. That's
But your
one
letter doesn't
question.
state that. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
I also.
The recent meetings, we knew nothing about that it was continuing, because we were told that that was all part of the same plan, the soccer, the fields, the fences, and when it all died, again, maybe our assumption, it died. So it was only because, you know, I had met Claire and we had heard through the historical people that the fence idea was still up, and then we heard it 2 weeks ago that you asked for a motion, and I think that's what got, feel free neighbors to speak up, that when they heard it, like, what motion, what fence, we didn't hear anything further on that.
Well, you could have the whole neighborhood here, and it wouldn't make any difference. You've convinced me, and I think the board, that, people feeling surprised about this. I understand that.
At this point, again, last fall.
At this point now, we need to consider the quality of the proposal.
Mhm.
And perhaps, even though it's a little late in the game, initiate a process of including you in the final planning of this, especially since Claire's gonna present us with some details that are gonna be new to us, presumably, and perhaps we can get on a road to come to a solution that everyone is comfortable with. It's not a perfect plan. Until the soccer people call us and say, you know what, we just found a great field somewhere else. We're done. We're not using Shanahan anymore. We've grown the program beyond, until we get that, or we're gonna spend God knows how many dollars to do a real parking lot system. This is a temporary solution, and we have to make it look as pretty as we can and make it, melt it into the neighborhood as best we can. Because you know what, I look at it this way, if I lived in Jimmy's house and I needed to sell my house and put a sign up there, I would have to think, what would hurt my property value or the perception of my property value? A fence, yellow signs, orange cones, if I could lead everyone to make a decision together collectively as to what is the most tolerable plan in terms of physically what we do down there, that's not the Board of Selectmen who make that decision. You guys have to hash that out because you live together down there. So, I don't know, I would say, and I appreciate your words. I would suggest maybe through the chair, we should engage now in a conversation with Claire in terms of what are we planning. And I agree with Ms. Piscatelli, we should get some details and drawings and, let's understand what we're planning down there.
Let me ask Greg.
It doesn't have to be done tonight, obviously.
Greg, wasn't there a plan of some
Something in
sort?
plan writing?
A drawing, wasn't there some sort of a sketch showing what the fence line was gonna be?
There was, I think Claire gave me a little
Do you
map.
want the original?
It had like a 220-foot line here, then she showed the house and she had a couple of little fences
That
around
would be a
it.
good start, I think.
So painting line, a white line
Is this
instead
what
of a
you're
yellow
talking about?
line is definitely out.
Well, that's the one for you had, then there was another one with a little
Yeah,
220-foot
it's just-
line going down it or something.
Are they gonna not drive across the white line? They used to park on
You
your
can
lawn.
stop at desk.
They wanna use your pool. I don't know that a line is gonna stop them.
But there's signs out in front of this building on the street that say no parking in fire line, and I'm sure that anybody that parks there gets a significant ticket or towed away. So the lines on the roads direct traffic on the roads throughout the city, so at least for consideration, some form of painting on the street that's respected by people who understand that its penalty is a viable consideration. I'm not saying that it is the solution that must be taken, but it's certainly something that shouldn't be dismissed.
Okay, just curious, we didn't get your name. I just-
Ed Burke, I live directly across the street from the cone line.
All right, so.
Yeah, it is
Right
about
across from
enforcement.
the-
You know,
yeah.
if few people start getting their cars towed out of there, word's gonna go around, don't park over there, cause your car's
Here's my only downside with that,
Oh,
Yeah.
that it's a soccer game. Some people from out of town, some people aren't from out of town. I don't know.
You know,
How do you-
Jimmy,
how do
I
you deal
live at
with
the
it?
beach, if somebody pulls into my driveway, I'm calling Simmy's to get them out of there in a hurry.
I understand, as
Because
long as
the
you,
parking is
as long as
limited.
you're willing to be able to call, and call the police and it gets towed,
And then
no
that's.
matter who parks there.
But
We-
when,
we
when you
need
have an open
enforcement.
space like that, people just don't have the same perception.
All it takes is
It's
one
different
car.
than driving into my driveway, I
Yes.
think. I coached for 8 years, I was down there, I coached U12s down there, it is crazy. And, you know, and respectfully, I have to say, I think that most soccer leagues would have a hard time, I really do, because I was coaching. And you're dealing with really young kids, this program that's developed down there is the youngest, you know, U6, U8s. So that's what's nice, because it's a great family, activity, and then getting kids involved. Soccer has a very low barrier to entry, not expensive equipment, you know, throw shorts on a kid and a ball and they're out there, so it's all the good stuff of life why this program is growing. But the ability for the soccer league to have people to set up cones and police traffic and all that, I don't think it's realistic, I don't see it happening.
I mean, just to throw up on cones, I mean,
It's-
I
it's an
also
idea,
enrolled
but
and coached for 15 years, soccer and softball.
Yeah,
And it's something that can be done, to just put cones up. When the first person comes on Saturday,
yeah.
when he's there first thing, getting all the equipment ready, or whether he's lining something or putting up nets, it's just one extra step. I get that. Then you can also have the children do it. Give the kids something to do. You try
It
to
could
get
be done, I
as an
just
activity
don't know
going.
if it would be sustainable, and I'm not speaking on behalf
I'm
of
just throwing out
somebody.
there as an idea.
Yeah, it's
so.
a good idea, it's a sensible idea, it's a low cost idea.
Exactly.
Like that part.
I'll go back to Washington Park with the lights. We brought everybody into our meeting, everybody around Washington Park, Salem Street, Lannon Avenue, Washington Street. We weren't going to put lights up that were going to be interfering with people's quality of life unless they all bought into it, and it worked. The boners with all their children, the roaches,
Well, we also
Everybody.
learned what people's concerns were that we never heard about at that time. You know, there were 4 or 5 houses that the balls were getting hit in the yard. They said, is there anything you could do? So we put up netting. I mean, it probably blocks 80% of it. You know, it wasn't 100%, but, you know, they got a little something in return too.
In terms of, resolving, an issue or negotiating a situation, I'd like to make a recommendation, just a consensus. You know, if we can hear what the details are and everybody agrees that we don't make any hard decisions tonight, everybody takes it back home and reflects, and then we all come back and see if we can come up with some collective, feeling that, what's being proposed is acceptable. I think right now, if we try to use this meeting to say, okay, let's agree, let's look at all the details now, let's all agree now, that's gonna be a problem. Because people are gonna feel obligated to hold on to their position. But in, successful negotiation and conflict resolution, we have to go through a period of reflection. So let's hear what the details are, hash out through questions, more details, and then let's have an agreement to come back again and, before we implement anything. It's just an idea.
So Claire, what did you wanna tell us tonight?
Claire, do you have the answer right there in that packet?
I hope so. When I originally came last fall, it was, because we were renting the building as a studio apartment, and we did get a very lovely lady in there. And, since she's been there, it's been a privacy issue, because of the cars being on top of the building, parking every which direction, her not being able to back out of her little parking space, which we've kind of pretty much, assigned to the front of the building, and people are kind of staying away from that pretty much. But people are walking their dogs and on leashes, and the animals are going to the bathroom in the flower beds in the front of the building, which isn't very nice.
It's good for the flowers.
No, it's not. This original diagram that I put together, granted I'm not a draftsman, was pretty concise, and, it really just kind of went around, it had a fence going around 3 sides of the building, okay? Went out 18 feet if you're looking straight on from Main Street, 18 feet out to the left, 16 feet to the back from the bulkhead, and then we wound up saying that the front should include 2 parking spaces, okay, for her and a visitor. On the right-hand side of the building, you really can't do anything because of the circle. There's a flower bed here, and then the circle, so there's no place for a fence there. So this really would give her some privacy by putting a fence on 3 sides of the building. A couple of weekends ago, on a Saturday night, there was a car parked right in the back of the building, right next to the bulkhead. And it stayed there all night, and I know she did call the police. But when I went to work in the morning, the car was still there. And it was empty, so I don't know what the story was in there. But, like I said, it's really privacy. As far as consideration goes with the people that are parking around that building, it's really hard. I was doing some gardening there probably a couple of months ago now, and we were set up on one side of the building. Somebody came, parked right smack dab, kind of where we were working, so I went and found him, and he didn't want to move the truck. And then he came over, and then he peeled out. That's not very considerate, and, I mean, he was right on, like, maybe a foot or 2 away from where we were working. And it was obvious that we were there, doing something. So it's that kind of thing, and, our tenant has also mentioned the fact that there's a lot of speeding that goes in that circle. People are going too fast through that circle, which you probably can attest to. I don't know how you fix that, other than a couple of Jersey barriers. So, I think that's basically, where we're coming from the Historical Society's point of view. We have a lady in there who, needs to be cared for a little bit, and, we're trying to do our best to, fix a couple of problems for her.
You didn't mention what kind of fence you're talking.
Split rail.
Split rail, even in the back now. At one time you were talking
Well,
about
we were talking about a privacy fence, for just the back.
How tall would that be?
Haven't quite decided because we haven't measured it out.
You mean something like a vinyl fence, piece of vinyl fence? Is that what you're talking
Not
about?
necessarily, could be wood. Could be wood. It comes like 3, 4, 5. I know it's not gonna be 6 feet. I know it's not gonna be that.
So
I'm thinking maybe 4 or 5 feet.
same material as, what's being proposed for the other fence?
Well, privacy fence would block off the
Like
area.
stockade, would it be?
Like a stockade fence, yeah.
So it's a safety issue too, it really is.
It really
It's a big
is.
safety issue if they're
It really
speeding
is.
around it.
They'll pull right up inside her living room.
Well, that's the whole thing, and,
You've seen that on
if
television.
she's out, she's got a little dog,
Yeah,
and she takes the dog out, and she's afraid the dog's gonna get run over.
yeah, 'cause people have no barrier, they have no clue.
Yeah, they're zipping around that circle like crazy. And, I mean, if you put a couple of signs up, you know, speed limit signs, I don't know, you know, at this point, they've been doing it for so long, I don't know if it's gonna make any difference.
Seems like people become immune to signs, don't they, when you read them?
They don't.
Well, they don't have a vested,
Interest, they're not living.
you know,
Yeah, I drove
when you-
home one night.
from different towns, you come and go, it's, you just don't, you don't have an awareness that you should,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
The two boys out smoking pot in a minivan, Mom's minivan, they're laying down smoking weed, and like, guys need to leave.
Yeah.
You leave now, I won't call the police.
Was this in back of the building?
Right in back of us, she was right out in back of her balcony, I was just sitting there going like, yeah, I couldn't believe it, I woke up, when I drove in, I couldn't see anybody yet, and so I walked over, and
Now, Dorsey had mentioned that you feel it's necessary, and I tend to agree, that you should have something in writing or a plan of what we wanna do at Jane's house as well, and.
Well, yeah, I think it would, you know, you want us to look at it and come to,
Yeah.
an agreement, but
Consensus.
Yeah.
we would like to see something.
Is it possible to get a
actually proposed.
photograph of the material, the fence itself, so people can see what this thing looks like?
Oh, the split rail?
Yeah.
Well, I think we know what a split
I
rail
think
is.
everybody
everybody
knows what a split
But
rail
now,
fence
Well, from Everett, I'm not sure what, I'm just kidding.
you want Jersey berries.
They had a lot of
Come on,
shame
we know
like
what
that.
you want.
at this point, I'd take Jersey Bear.
I'll go with
I think it's a
Don't
great
push me, I'm from the
idea.
city, I'll put up
I'm saying
some
I'm
Jersey
pink.
barrels. All right, no, I just wanna make sure, because a lot of people sign this and other people are interested in the neighborhood, so I wanna make sure that everybody gets all the information they have. If somebody doesn't know what a split rail is, and you don't want that to be a defining reason to say, I'm not in favor of this, when they don't even know what it is. For example.
Let me ask Ed a question, because I know Ed, I haven't seen you at any of the gatherings, but, were you aware of the request on the historical building?
No.
To do fencing? No, okay, so you didn't know anything about that at all? We've had several meetings. The first meeting started out, they wanted to expand the parking lot, turn the field, take out another 30 or 40 feet out of the woods, and put two big fields over there.
I was aware of that, and as Dorsey had mentioned, I was out there when they had the walkthrough, I came to the meetings here.
So you were there at the
I was
Saturday
there
morning?
when we had
Okay.
the meetings, I was, that, up until that point, when things had essentially been, for lack of a better word, parked, after that, my understanding was the same, the fact that there was further development consideration in that area was a surprise to me. I haven't seen any letters, maybe they've been sent, but I certainly haven't received them, just took me as a surprise, I didn't know anything else was going on, I thought that there was kind of like a pause for lack of funding and nothing else was happening.
Well, did you hear about the CPA plan to put, or they requested CPA funds to put a bathroom over at the field?
Oh, yeah, I was here for that meeting,
Okay,
yes.
yeah, so that was another project that was talked about, but they were also talking about engineering a plan to make a big parking lot out of the circle area.
Oh, yes,
Into the
I
area
was
of the
here
fence.
for that meeting.
Okay, all right.
And removing trees.
And removing all the trees, for the most part. Which most of us felt like it was kind of a shame to wipe out the trees, they're pretty nice trees, they look nice, and they spent some pretty good money. If you replace them, there'd be a lot of money, but.
I have a
Did you
question.
finish?
Yeah, on the fence that's coming out from the building, 18 feet, and then you have the other split rail fence running down the right of way. What is the distance between those two fences?
What did that leave, 15?
It's not enough room, you can't come out 18
You
feet.
can't, yeah, see,
That was the
the
original,
The original request was
Can't,
18.
can't maintain
And
a
we
15 foot
determined
right
that,
away.
wasn't it 6 feet or 7 feet?
It was, I think the max was like 8 feet.
8 feet.
You put out 8 feet,
Yeah.
then have like
That
20,
was the biggest problem, because then you
23
couldn't
feet to
fit
drive
between
through
them.
there, and then still maintain it right away. You couldn't
Is that
possibly put it.
I see, okay.
Is that 8 feet from the building itself, or from where the flower gets
No,
started?
8 feet from the
Can't go
building.
any further than 18 feet from the building.
From the
Was it
actual
the
building.
existing fence, actually. I drew up a whole plan,
Yeah.
had it priced out,
It's
it just got,
Can I just add one more
8 feet,
thing?
8 feet from the
8
side of the building. You can't, if you were gonna maintain and put up a fence and still have either a means of egress or two means, however you're gonna do it, in or out or whatever, it can't be any wider from that building than 8 feet. And that would give you, I leave 25 feet to drive in through, and then parking, and then the right of way.
Yeah, the biggest issue that we're trying to look at the way to put angle parking, if that was gonna work there,
That's
if they
right.
were gonna be able to oppose each other, you know, and then when the striping guy came out, I believe, he didn't think he could get very many spots in.
No, and angle parking, I think, would,
Well, the
like
problem
be a
was-
setup for people backing into the fence.
He couldn't angle park it, he said it was parallel parking, if that was gonna be an exit,
Yeah.
parking spaces take up, they'd be 9 by 18, 9 wide, 18 long, and then an additional 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what we're trying to do is accommodate everybody at that point.
Right.
Put in more parking, get more parking spaces for the town, and have a means of egress out of there and still use the turnaround. But as it grew, at this point, with all this done, what the town was gonna do was $3,300. It escalated from there, and we started talking about privacy fences and the rest of that. The cost escalated to like $5,000.
Yeah.
And then, where's the rest of the money coming from, was the question.
Clear?
Can I just add one thing that I forgot to mention when I was talking? The Historical Society will pay, for the fence around the building, okay? Which, on this particular estimate, which is really the only one that we've done, you know, and I really wanna have a couple of other people take a look at this, cause I think this is a high estimate, but what do I know about fences? But our part of it, the Historical Society's part of it was gonna be like $1,800, which I thought was a little steep. But we're willing to pay for whatever it cost to put a fence around the Knox building.
Did you get a couple of different quotes? How many did you get? Couple, 3?
No, I just got one so far. I've just been
Busy.
really busy.
And that was the night, I think I stopped there the night.
That was Groveland
Okay.
fence. Yeah.
I saw them out there around the building, so I stopped.
Yeah.
That $5,000 quote, Jane, what type of material would that buy us?
It was a split rail fence, it was actually 33, and that was to put 220 feet down the right of way. It was to come out 8 feet from the existing Claire's building, run down her side, come back over 30 and back up 16 to fence in her backyard, which would give her 16 feet of space behind the building.
So it was 16 by 30 area behind the building, basically?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yep, so it'd be 16 by 30, leave a little opening so she'd come in and out. We'd gain 10 parking spaces down the parallel line of the fences, and so it was kinda like a win-win for everybody. And then we're gonna put, you know, one way in and the other way out, you know what I mean? And then it would alleviate the problems with the parking and people trying to find their way around the
Trying
property.
to race through.
That's what we put together, and then the problem is, and Claire decided on a privacy fence, that escalated the cost a little bit, and at that point, I kinda like divorced myself a little bit from that, because it didn't look like it was gonna fly.
Claire, can we
That's
mix,
where I did.
can we copy that so that the neighbors can get a copy of that? Is
This
it-
one? Sure.
Is that the one that shows all of it?
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
when, okay.
220 feet up brings you to the telephone pole
It does.
near the street.
Yep.
Does it have to come up that far? Just a question, wondering
Right.
why that was delineated.
It'd be enough to get in and out and turn the radius and still define it and still have people go the ways that we thought it would be. It wasn't even my suggestion, it was somebody else's suggestion.
Well, probably, if you cut it back a ways, the odds of people just driving across and parallel parking along your grass and blocking the street off
No,
can still
yeah.
happen,
No,
right?
I'm just thinking,
No,
you
I
know,
think-
instead of cutting, I wouldn't wanna cut it back that far if we decide to go that route.
Uh-huh.
But believe enough, because cars constantly pull in and turn around there, I'm just thinking, I just know what happens. I
A lot
don't know
of
if you've
women.
dealt with soccer moms and SUVs.
I've tried to drive through there before.
So, I'm just wondering if we bring it back another 10, 15 feet in line with the historical building. Not saying that works, just throwing some ideas out there to just make sure everything's safety is taken care of, they have their
Yeah, visibility.
24 visibility, they, something we should maybe discuss if we're going to continue to look at
I
exhibits.
think that if you all came down on a Saturday, when there's 2 soccer games going on, this would be pretty obvious. I just ask you all to come.
I was
Come,
gonna
I'll make coffee and I'll make coffee and I'll make breakfast.
I was
Just come and
gonna
sit.
recommend a walkthrough, a neighborhood walkthrough,
Yeah.
like, you know.
On a Saturday.
Yeah.
What time do they start?
starts
Very
around,
early, yeah.
starts around 8:30, and just escalates from there, depends how many games they
How
put
late does
through.
it go in the day?
Three,
Um,
4 times, we
yeah.
end at 2:30, sometimes 4,
Yeah.
depends on the game schedule.
I think the walkthrough.
So you got, you know, you're swapping
People
fields, you're
coming and
swapping
going
people,
and-
and you're trying to get them all out, and, you know, if you have, I don't know, I'd guess 50 parking spots on your town property,
Let
that'd
me
be an
ask this,
extreme.
since the cones have been down the line, have they been run over?
No, a couple have been knocked over, but
Oh,
most
it's
parked
just-
in the road.
I mean, I know someone
People
mentioned.
have, people have come down when they leave the soccer
But
field.
even at the end of it, which was prior to that, when it stopped it.
When the string is broken, I have seen people leave the soccer field and drive down.
Drive through it,
out
come
the
down
road.
the line?
Oh, they will, they'll ride over.
I mean, the only other solution that like my wife said, you can move it back 15, 20 feet or whatever, and then you could always put a white line from there down to the street and put no parking down at it. That way, it's only on one part of the parking lot. Versus the whole entire parking lot, make the whole entire parking lot look ugly. You can only have the no parking down towards the street side, which is actually near the mailbox where the premium safety mailbox is on that end.
Still think
So,
we need to put a sign.
rather than have the fence come on, it's just a lot of wood for people to hit.
Whether it's 220 or 175, to me, it doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? It needs to be defined. I don't think a split rail fence is the best way to define it. Structurally, could be something better, but structurally means something actually ugly. So, I don't know what to say. It was the most cost-effective way out to do that, that's what we did.
At the
We had a
Little
bigger
League
plan
field,
together.
they took like, guardrail
Yep.
metal pieces. They had put the guardrail metal pieces in, and then they put the wood composite top and down the sides.
Yep.
I mean, it didn't look real bad. It seems to suffice for what it does, but last year I picked up a bunch of the pieces of it because people were hit. You know,
Maybe you need some really
The wood.
nice,
you know.
some nice granite posts with black,
with black rails.
black rails that would look nice.
Nice.
But then I think you're getting way up in cost, so.
Granite.
Put a split rail fence in there, 2-post horse rail fence, and put them in with concrete and steel poles, so you can actually slide it off and replace it to make it easier. That was $6,800.
$6,800.
So, which is much more attractive, you know what I mean? Here's your tops, here's your whole thing, but you can't just put something like that in and not have some understructure to it because it wouldn't last. So, I mean, it just escalates in costs, so.
I don't wanna overstep my bounds here with the chair, but where did the money come from for the plan that's on paper now, and is there any more money?
All we talked about was doing the 220-foot split rail down the
Yeah.
property line once we defined where the right-of-way marker was.
Right.
That was gonna come out of municipal fields and water.
Yeah.
Like I said, this wasn't a project that was budgeted within that account, so we're taking a little risk on the other side. You know, if one of the irrigation systems blows up or
Right.
the well blows up, there wouldn't be money at the end of the year next spring to fix all that stuff.
Okay.
We tried to get a reserve fund transfer, the finance committee didn't wanna do a reserve fund transfer for a fence, so. That's what we said, you can
So
still
we're-
ask for it again next spring, they may have a different change of mind, but for now.
We're spec'd out and we're charged out.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, municipal fields and water is a $16,000 account.
Yeah, I'm just.
And it can be used, it's basically used to paint the gazebo down at Elm Park. It sets the irrigation system for the main fields, it pays for the fertilization programs in various fields around town. It takes care of turning all the irrigation systems on and off, it's a very limited account. So, you know, I said, this year here, we had a $3,000 problem with the well. You know, next year, we, you know, in this, I mean, at the end of fiscal, starting up this spring, I should say, which was in fiscal, the prior fiscal year, with the new fiscal year now. If that doesn't occur next year, you're fine. If it does occur again, you know, sorry about that, you'd be fine. If it does occur next year, at the same time, I may not have the money to return the irrigation system off.
So whatever the solution is,
The cheapest as possible.
we have to go, whether we go with a scheme to move cones around or paint lines and put up signs or use split rail fence, there isn't any money to go
Well, this is,
beyond that.
that's the account you have available to you for this type of a project. You know, it's-
I have a question.
I just wanna add one more thing, if the walkthrough can be done, that'd be great. It doesn't necessarily have to be on a game day, because we all know, I think we all know the problem. The walkthrough is just so we can say, here's where the fence starts, where it ends, and kind of try to get a visual of what we wanna construct.
No,
But go
I
ahead.
think you should still be there
Yeah, I do.
on games.
Okay, that's fine.
I do.
Picture's worth a
Okay,
thousand.
that's
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So you're allowed, if it was one soccer field, it wasn't too bad. You're allowed another soccer field in. So, and here it is, it's the town that's created the issue. And now you sit here and say, you have
What
no
can we
funds.
do?
I understand that, every municipality, I do a lot of municipal work, I understand that, but there's no planning involved with the whole project. Whether it's one soccer field, or he was gonna go to 3, or a field, or 2.5 fields.
Not enough parking.
It's been the MO since day one.
Well,
And, you know, and for me personally, if I sound slightly frustrated, I am. You know, I just need a grass, that's all I need. Everybody else has a grass on their property, I just need to maintain the safety issue, and not in the, hopefully, on to civic. Something glad enough to get out.
it's really, it's quality of life issue, public safety
Yeah,
issue,
Sure it is.
and a property.
Absolutely. It's all those things, so.
Can I say one quick little thing?
Sure.
I mean, part of what Jim touched on when he said, you know, the town has done a lot of this. It kind of is and kind of isn't. As you drive around town, you see all the athletic programs are expanding. They just saw football up there, now it's grade 3, it used to be grade 5, now it's grade 3 to 8. Soccer used to be, you know, when you got to first grade, now it's kindergarten and they're going back further. It's almost like, I just had quadruplets, boss, so I need to buy a bigger house, give me more money. It's kind of an after the fact thing, it's like they're creating the programs without the fields to put them on, and then this is just all blowing up now. It's, I mean, I respect you saying like the
No, no,
town,
no,
has-
it's-
it's, we have no saying whether these groups blow up their programs or not. It's just happening. I said, I have no idea what football is planning to, when they expanded all that. They're working down a park right now that Mr. Bussing owns, that we may own, in the middle of their season. And they're hoping to go, I guess, God, that we're gonna keep letting them do what they do down there. But it just seems to be happening more and more that everybody wants to expand their program, whether it's lacrosse. They're all expanding them, and we don't have the fields to put them on.
Space.
So it's kind of all beginning to improve, like you said, quality of life in all the neighborhoods. We're overflowing now. I wish there was a way we could tell them, that we're working on fields down here. Behind Bagnell's gonna be better in a couple of years. Just hold off, don't keep expanding right now. Let us have the space for you to go to before you create the problem. And that seems to be what's happened over the last 3 or 4 years. It's just, again, like you said, a lot of kids, but, you know, like I said, when my kids grew up, soccer started in the 1st grade. Now I see it's kindergarten and pre-K. And football was grades 5 to 8, now it's grades 3 to 8 this year. It's expanding, and we just don't have a place to put them all.
We did add 2 small fields down here at the Pines for the soccer program, because they felt they needed more space, and then before long, there was a flag football team started, okay? So I mean, that's what happens, you make a little bit of space and they build on it, but, Claire, I think, wanted to say something.
I just have one more thing to say. Is there any issue with anyone here about what we've proposed to do around the Knox building?
No. Really,
I think the fence, the privacy
Nope.
fence
I
definitely
think it
has
should
to
be.
go around that building. I think we agree with that.
yeah.
But she's actually called me up and asked me to bring cones over during soccer time, so that she can get out her back door. So I go and put cones, she has at least
It's
20
a-
feet to walk her dog.
Uh-huh.
They encircle the building.
Okay.
The cones, or the people.
People.
So they just pull right into the bulkhead of the back door, so
I mean,
she's
they're
called me.
right on top of the bulkhead. I mean, they would drive on it
Obviously,
if
what
they
Jimmy
could.
witnessed going on down there, maybe that's a meeting place.
Oh, it
No,
has
no, it's
for
only happened,
years.
it's only happened a few
Oh,
times.
I've seen it over the years.
But I
Kids
can't
parking over
agree
there.
with Claire's,
Yeah.
idea to expand the fence if she's gonna come out 18 feet. That is.
No,
No, she's-
you know,
I'm sorry.
No, she's just.
Okay, I just don't understand.
Is it the 8
No,
feet we're
no.
talking?
Okay.
Is it the 8-foot
Not a
wide
problem.
plan?
Not a problem.
No, which plan are we talking? You originally were
The
talking.
that
The original
original
that they have a
plan
copy
was,
of.
was
Yeah.
18.
Right.
Okay, but the
Then
current
we
one
shrunk-
is
Then
8.
we
Current
shrunk
one
it
is
down. I forgot to mention that, sorry.
So can we schedule a walkthrough, or pick a Saturday, I'll go.
What do you feel when the first games are? I don't know, I don't have the schedule, so.
7th,
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry,
the 7th.
7th of September?
Yeah, there's a guy right there.
Okay.
Well, when I come off a soccer field and I'm being told that soccer's being talked about, I came down.
Okay,
Yeah.
time to see.
What time do the games start?
First official game starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. And that's because of the Triple E, we started pushing the games back to 9 AM.
That's another thing we should
Yeah.
talk to police.
Yeah.
So you folks would be able to communicate to your neighbors and invite them to join, anybody else?
Chris is on vacation.
Apologize, I missed it. What time on September 7th? Would we do a walkthrough? I just didn't capture that.
What was the time?
The
They
game
didn't
is-
say
First
that.
game starts at 9.
They didn't say that.
So I'd say
That'd be
by
what?
the time everybody comes and gets set up,
8:30.
How many teams come at a time, Steve?
4 teams total. There's 2 on one field and 2 on the other.
So there's 4 games, or
No,
4 teams, or
2
2
games.
games, 4,
Yep.
4 teams.
Yep.
How many kids on the team?
There is, to the U10s, there's 9 to a team. And then the U12s, there's usually 11 or 12 to a team.
So roughly like 40 kids per game.
When's the first crossover?
right, that's the busiest,
Half
that's
an
the
hour
most
in
chaotic.
between. We have a half an hour in between.
So like at noontime, you'd have like the
So if
first
you have
one ending and the
that
second one.
It's 9 to 10, then 10:30 to 11:30, then 12 to, so we have a half an hour layout, and they're coming and going at the same time.
What's the age group, Steve?
U10 and U12 only.
U10?
It's been down there for, I'd say at least 10 to 12 years.
10 years, yeah, since when I
For
started
those 2
coaching.
age groups?
Yeah, U10. U10, U12 was down there when I started coaching 10 years ago. I think that, it started the same year that I coached, when I started coaching, about 10 years.
So if you did it the first crossover time, you'd probably have a good look.
There is nothing you can
Yeah.
do. Unless you have multi-million dollars to build Strawberry Fields for us, there is no place that we can go. We can't move, there's nothing you can do. I agreed entirely about the fence thing, I thought that was resolved, I said, I don't mind, I know there's some people in there. I thought that everybody was up to speed, and a couple of the neighbors came and said, we haven't heard about the fence. I stated that before. I told them to contact you guys, so we had nothing to do with it, that's why I pulled back
Right, there was.
on talking about it, 'cause it
there
had
was-
nothing to do with me.
Right, but nobody was really attacking the soccer.
Looking for solutions.
No, I'm not saying you were attacking, I just heard soccer was being
Well, I mean,
talked.
tonight's discussion, you weren't here, but we're in a process right now where we're gonna bring the neighborhood together and come up with hopefully a set of plans or solution or some methodology to create public safety and to do it in such a way that it minimizes any, what would be construed as eyesores to people that live down there. We're not talking about
No,
changing
th-
your program,
there
we're
was two-
talking about accommodating the program,
it's-
but also accommodating the wishes of the neighbors.
There was 2 sets in there, and I think for a good portion of the neighbors, they agreed. We wanted to go ahead and do the planning for the parking lot /
Sure.
along the street and stuff, but we put it on hold because of the expenses. I mean, it was pretty expensive to go and do it.
Was it like $30,000 or something?
26 grand, somewhere, yeah, that's, yeah, 20, somewhere around there, but that was for both the bathroom and, but yeah, it's an expensive venture, and that's just to get the plans in place.
And this solution, that is being proposed, is really a temporary solution, because ultimately, what needs to happen is either, or a combination, either the program is transferred somewhere else, or we do make that big investment into a bona fide parking facility.
What I think, I've talked to many people who've heard my opinion, I believe that Shanahan is a one-field park, it is. It should stay as a soccer field, or for my belief, I'd say 1 soccer field, I don't believe in 2. I made it U12 and U10 for this season because, in the last couple of seasons, because I'm trying to make it green again, because there was a lot of divots and problems that were occurring on the field. I believe firmly in the long run, that Strawberry Fields is where you would put most of the soccer, but you still wanna keep that as a park.
Sure. And that's why I think.
And there's a lot, that's a long-term and a very long-term goal. I think a lot of us would love to see Strawberry Fields be turned into a green facility for everything, multiple sports.
September 7th should be exciting, rain or shine. If everyone can attend, that'd be great, rain or shine.
10:30.
Did you pick a time?
8:30.
So it sounds like somewhere between 10 and 10:30 would be the time to be
Is that the
there.
better time?
The busiest time.
That would be the
Crossover, yeah.
changeover
You
time.
wanna see crossover?
10?
Is 10 day out?
What's that? Yeah, let's go with 10. 10.
Sidewalk at Shanahan on 9/7 at 10 a.m.
Yes.
Where can we park, Jim? I was just joking.
Going to Jimmy's.
Couple
is
suggestions.
On Main Street.
Figure out.
We park in our driveway.
There you go.
How's that, Jim?
Oh, gosh.
Alright, so everyone has a copy of what the plan is, so that they have time to view that.
No, where
I
can
got one, Ed.
Can I get one? You got one?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Linda was holding out on
I
it.
don't know if Claire, you got your copy back, I don't know if you did.
I think I had an extra one.
Steve, one of the other things we discussed, just as an interim, while we figure out this whole fence plan, was the soccer committee, or the first soccer game, putting the orange cones out on Saturday mornings. So they're not there now 24/7, to make sure that the Sheehan's have
I mean,
an egress.
I'm not in town every Saturday, so I can't speak, I mean, I can ask my board members, we have our next meeting's actually on the 4th, before the first game, I can always ask. We could take a rotation, if the cones are already there, if you want us to get cones, then I would probably try to look towards, the highway department, cause I can't get cones that quick. And I don't know, I can figure out how many, obviously, but cones aren't gonna work, you need the rope thing in between, I would assume. So it's a little gadgety thing that we could pull in and out. I can't, like I said, I can't guarantee.
Now,
until-
what started today, I noticed on my way here.
Practices.
Okay, so practice season is already.
Should've started last week, actually. I've been away for 2 weeks, so.
Okay.
And the field is actually looking like a,
It's been watering a lot.
Yeah, a lot of water.
we had some issues with our, let's just say our grass growing properly, so. We're trying to rectify that situation because there were some mistakes made, not by us, but we're fixing it. It's all a process. We wanna make it pretty,
So when,
and the well works very well.
when will the practices be? Every night? Basically.
There is, Monday through Friday, there is at least 1 to 4 teams, max is no more than 4 teams, because there's only 2 can play on the field at a time, at this point. So I don't see it going any higher than that, cause we're maxed out on teams, we can't grow any more kids.
So what is it, 5 o'clock at night they start? Is
They
it
start at
4?
4:30 and they finish by, I think the last team's off there by 7, cause it starts getting dark.
So essentially, we'd have to be putting the cones in and out every day, if that's,
With practice. Although I don't know how many people are showing up
Practice.
to practice.
Yeah.
Most of the time,
Game to
most of the
games.
time, kids just drop off, get dropped off and they go. So the
On
parking
game
is.
day, it's Ensembles
And
grandparents.
today we had a clinic.
Now, you mentioned Triple E, can you tell me what you're doing about Triple E? You've
We
done it
just,
on
we're
your
just,
own?
we're just conscious, we wait, if the health department, it's on the health department, you guys don't have to worry about it, the health makes a decision, we follow what they say, they usually give me a call if there's an issue, that's what they did last season.
So it's
We were probably the only town that didn't have
any,
big issue last year, most of the other towns around us were closing fields for a certain
Yeah.
period of time. If we get closed, we get closed, that's how it works.
Department
we
of
see-
Public Health would notify our
It-
Board of Health?
Yeah, our Board of Health makes it, actually it's based off of each individual town, they can make their own decision off of what the Department of Public Health do.
I hope this was helpful.
That was,
So much.
Okay.
We'll see.
it's a dialogue.
It is. It is that. We've got a lot of that, Betty.
Wish we had a lot of money.
I know, don't we?
I do.
It'd be a lot
I'd
easier.
spend it for you guys, make it look nice. I think it should look, you know, I think the neighbors deserve that.
We appreciate that.
So
Yeah, I
as
do
far
know
as
that.
Claire's request, will, after that walk, re-meet, is that what the plan is?
If I get your consensus, I think that's the best thing, let's approve everything once we have an agreement on the whole project.
I'll try to get a couple more, estimates.
Okay.
And maybe a different idea, and that's.
Yeah, you never
Who
know.
knows?
You never know.
All with a target, so we pretty much make a decision for the week following September 7th.
I think
So
we should.
the meeting, we're gonna meet on September 9th, I believe.
Okay.
Maybe we can make that decision, you know, really finalize it that day, so, you know, we wanna make sure we get this done before the winter sets in too.
Could be great.
If we're gonna do anything, right?
Okay. I think the only thing we have left is some proper use permits.
Right.
Um,
Thank thank you to
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Thank you. And I'm glad people get in touch with us, because sometimes we don't hear about things until it's blown up.
So basically, I don't think we have anything else.
I just figured the first 5
So if
minutes.
we get a motion to adjourn.
Just one question.
No, they're almost,
Good question.
the plans are great. They have some recs, I'll send, I think you wanna see the
Did you see
plans,
it?
you wanna see the final.
I thought Nancy had
file just
questions.
site here anyway.
Yeah, and he's been
I thought your questions were fine.
Yeah, and that's what I said during minutes to
I
start.
like the part that, you know, do they have any questions of us?
Just to make sure that
Okay, so
they,
you okay
he's
with
gonna
the
send
questions?
out and then a lot.
I'm pretty
as soon as
set
we get
with the
there,
questions, yeah.
It looks good, great.
Because we're gonna have to move on that too.
Okay, yeah.
Sometime we're gonna use them, we'll have to
Yeah,
figure out.
sure.
how to-
Is it too late?
No, but take.
Well, security.
Just one-
These properties looking worse and worse by the day.
Just wanted to know, like, the protocol, when I send a letter to 3 selectmen, which one of you gave it to the Sheens?
It wasn't me.
It wasn't me, honestly.
Rosie, it wasn't me.
Okay, so that leaves one person who had a copy of that letter, who decided to give a copy to the Sheens, right? Is that ethical?
Well, everything we do is in the public forum.
I agree that it should be here tonight as an
Right.
open letter.
So,
But they obviously got it and knew about this prior, so that's kind
Well,
of my question.
they were probably notified because, you know, he was gonna be talked about, so I would imagine you have to notify anyone you're gonna talk
Absolutely.
about. So I mean, maybe with that, the document was
That-
given.
Should've come from you though, Donnie.
What's that?
Should've come from you.
Which?
I think
You
if,
marked that letter. It should've come from the selectmen.
Well, I actually called Nancy and told her I received a letter. I didn't know whether they got it.
You gotta be careful, Don. We're going into an ethics situation here.
Well, I can hear what you're saying, but there was,
You understand where I'm coming from?
yeah, I know what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm just saying
There is an
that,
ethics thing here, and you gotta be very, very careful, because it could come back and bite us all.
well,
I just wanna be careful. No, I
You
wanna
know
do
you know that
everything
better
cross-
than others.
Huh?
Sometimes there's somebody just
And-
waiting
and
out there
that's
in the
what-
bushes.
right, so when I
That's
got the
right.
letter, I told Nancy that I
That's
had the
right,
letter, and I
100%
thought we
right.
should discuss it in a meeting.
Let me answer your question.
No, we agree, we're very thankful for that.
A citizen is not held to a specific standard. It's perfectly okay to send a letter to the
Mhm.
selectman's house. That's okay. You know,
Right.
My recommendation, of course, would be, you wanna send it also through official channels, through.
I did,
Which you
that
did.
was the first.
Now,
You
your
notify-
issue is, I have no idea. I
No,
wasn't-
and I think, I knew, you told me last week when we talked,
Yeah.
Jimmy was gonna be here, and I have no problem with that,
I
and
would
you should have
think.
seen, there was nothing in the letter. That, it was
Yeah.
just pretty much statements about the, none of the neighbors knew, and it was a collaborative letter for the neighborhood. So I was just wondering, is that normal process?
See, anything that comes in, it ends up being public information, for the most part.
If,
Once
I mean,
it's on the agenda and discussed, it becomes public information,
but
but not until that point.
I mean, I'm not really sure exactly what this is all about, but you couldn't have even discussed this tonight without Mr. Sheehan being.
Oh, no, we
Oh,
know
no,
that,
no.
we agreed, Nancy said.
That isn't the point,
and we said
Greg.
Jimmy
I think
should be
sometimes
there.
people get concerned about information, how it's disseminated.
Yeah, that
Right.
was the only question, it's just how it got disseminated, because he seemed to not
And
wanna
that's why,
say,
I
and
mean-
that to me was a little unethical, is why would he just say that Nancy gave him a copy if she was gonna be there, so. It just didn't sit right. in the
Yeah, no,
committee,
that
but
was the
somebody
next- that was the
like,
only negative
I
in
got
this
a
one.
copy.
Trees going
Yeah,
down.
so that was my
Why?
question, I just wanted to know how that
Why?
worked, because I would think he would have answered that, you got a copy from
Almost,
the selectmen,
almost didn't.
so,
Yeah, it can come from us.
okay, thank you.
And this,
Thank you.
Greg has my copy,
Yeah,
is the envelope, I opened it Friday.
No problem.
thank you,
All right,
good to
thank
see
you.
you, been a long time.
Fill him in on the money we spent, Joe.
You spending a bunch of money?
Not yet, you haven't.
It's an exciting
On the-
time.
Well,
He's spending money.
we're going to spend.
Alright, so,
Don't you wish you had that kind of money to spend?
Yeah, can
Make a
give
motion
us
to
a few
adjourn.
bucks.
So moved.
all in favor?
Alright?
Bye.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn with Joe, second, Joe.